It is often difficult to explain precisely the nature of this relation of Kant's work and how Kant's thought evolved in this matter from his pre-critical writings to his latter work. Despite the fact that the relation between freedom and the moral law is central to Kant's moral philosophy, it's often difficult to explain precisely the nature of this relation in Kant's work. The consensus among interpreters is that Kant, at his very least, supports some version of what Henry Allison refers to as the Reciprocity Thesis, which is the thesis that freedom and the moral law entail each other. On the other hand, there is substantial amount of debate on the manner in which the numerous arguments contained in Kant's corpus are meant to lead us from the fact that we are free to the fact that we are bound by the moral law, or vice versa. What appears to be a fundamental shift in Kant's stance with regard to this relation is especially perplexing. Kant, in a number of his works up until the Critique of Practical Reason, but not including it, gives the impression that he believes he possesses independent grounds to establish that we are free and that we can use this fact as some kind of foundation for the moral law. However, he does appear to believe that this to be the case. On the other hand, there is no room for debate about the fact that Kant eventually came to the conclusion that we do not have any access to the fact that we are free independently of the moral law. The criticism of practical reason can be found in, according to Kant, the rule is the ratio cognoscenti, which translates to the ground of knowledge. The ratio cognoscenti can be defined as anything through or by means of which a thing is known. It can also refer to freedom. Because if the ethical law had not already been clearly conceived in our reason, we would never consider that we are justified in presuming there is such a thing as freedom. And in religion, Kant seems to claim that there is simply no form of reasoning that could lead someone to infer that they are bound by the moral law. And once again, that our awareness of the moral law is the source of our awareness of our freedom, rather than the other way around. If this moral law were not given to us from within, then no amount of subtle reasoning on our part would produce it or win our power of choice over it. But this law is the only one of its kind, and is the only law that makes us aware of the independence of our power of choice from being determined by any other incentives or our freedom. Given that Kant believes that freedom is the ratio ascendi of the moral law, we have no choice but to read assertions such as the moral law makes us conscious of our freedom as making epistemological claims, even though it is possible to read statements such as the moral law makes us conscious of our freedom as making metaphysical claims. On the other hand, it may seem as though Kant goes about things in the opposite direction throughout the groundwork. Between the groundwork and the Critique of Practical Reason, or between the years 1785 and 1788, many, if not the majority, of the commentators take this apparent contradiction at face value and draw the conclusion that Kant's philosophical position underwent a significant shift during this time period. Nevertheless, in contrast to his well-known rejection of a number of his pre-critical viewpoints, Kant appears to be unaware of, or at the very least fails to admit, that his perspectives has undergone a significant shift. How could Kant have been so blind to such a significant shift in his understanding of the connection between liberty and the ethical obligation? How come he hadn't seen it for himself? Or did he believe that this was not a significant enough shift to warrant devoting some time and effort to writing about it? There is no question that the considerations of this nature do not constitute a deciding factor. We might assume that Kant is not being very straightforward about his perspective, or that he expects his readers to identify changes on their own. On the other hand, it is important to point out that in regard to these issues, there is not much else that changes, or at the very least, there is not much that may be relevant for the argument in any direction. Whatever grounds Kant had to modify his thinking in 1788, they were previously available to him in 1785. There are no explicit new notions about freedom, morality, or the relation of the perceptible and intelligible universe that are introduced that are or could support such a shift in perspective.